it's good to talk to different people in the different schools, because otherwise you miss the important stuff.
Yes.
And actually, in my conversations, it helps to flush out misconceptions, I think, on my end and on the other end, both on what's really going on. And yeah, I've got a lot to think about, so that's good.
All right.
Okay.
So for today's session, we have a couple questions. So the first question I have, John, it says, for kindergarten or even like with the primary ages, can the procedures be written together, which is teacher-led, or can they have drawings or pictures instead of listing or describing the procedures? So can they use pictures instead of writing out their procedures?
So the question is really, can I do this better? That's like the best way to do it. Oh, my word. So
yeah, I think that's very appropriate.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I guess we both can rattle on about this one, but I love to have students try to do procedures and pictures. I like to have students do things written out. I like to do a combination. You know, even you could have kids even like act out the procedures, but that would be so hard to document. But, you know, with video about could do it. But I guess one thing which I realized as an instructor working as a teacher with kids is when we think of kids as having different learning styles, that's kind of cool. Is if you can have the kid help, especially if you do an activity, they identify their learning styles, have them feel comfortable that they can write their procedure and their learning styles. And usually kids have a couple.
Yeah, and I think also if you think more with kindergarten and with the other first and second grade, having the pictures is a great way to help the students start to get to practice the communicating skills, the communication to be able to tell what the steps they're going to do. And it also is a good way to help them be descriptive in their pictures. Because if you have to follow directions based on pictures, you have to make sure that you've got your details really specific, because otherwise, if they don't know what's going on in the picture, they're not going to be able to redo your steps.
No, you know, as a teacher too, we can model these different kinds of writing procedures. But going back to the other point, we got to realize we have our favorite learning style too. And we're going to be inclined to instruct our students to write procedures in the way that we are comfortable writing them.
Which is hard. But being aware of that, I think, will make us more effective in the classroom.
Definitely.
And being able to acknowledge that the way we're teaching it is not the only way. And we may be teaching, like you said, because that's our preference for how to learn. But being able to offer those options, and I think a good idea would be to have the students do all of them at first, and then allow them to choose. Because there'll be students that will know what's their preference for learning, but there may be students that don't know. They may be doing one way every time because that was the only way they were taught to do it. But once they discover there's other ways to complete the task, they may find that one more preferable.
Yeah, awesome.
So then our second question is, what is a good time frame for doing a science inquiry process project? So one thing that comes to my mind, which is a misconception I've been noticing, is that science inquiry, they believe it is a unit. It is an experiment where it's not an actual unit. It's the process. It's a strategy in order to help the students understand the science content.
Yeah.
Science inquiry goes along with the engineering process skills. It's a way to get to the content. It's not the content itself. So science inquiry can be applied across all fields of science, but also, as we learned, inquiry can happen in all subject areas too.
Yeah, and this seems really subtle, but it's that point even to think that inquiry is what we do in the labs. Yes. If we're doing a lab, we're doing inquiry. Inquiry is, and this is where we understand this, all of a sudden it does become cross-curricular. That if you're reading articles with your students or they're reading something and they're making inferences, folks, you're doing science. It's a science of literature, you know?
That's right.
And there's a science of that fits so many other things. And if you're doing observations, you're doing questioning, you're doing predictions, you're writing hypothesis, or what's the other word? Inferences. You're doing science. You're prepping your kids.
And when you think of when teachers do book recommendations, like I would have my students read a book and then they had to present that's science. Because when you are presenting, it's like presenting data. The data is the stories that you read, and you have statements, which is kind of like your hypothesis and you're trying to persuade them to believe a certain thing based on what you read. You're using that as data to support.
Right. So all you art teachers out there, we need you to help us out.
Yes.
Right. Because having an opportunity to have worked with astronomers, professional astronomers, they called images data. You got to realize, procedure can be a lot of different things. You got to really open up our minds to that. Great question.
So yeah, so what would be a good time frame for a science inquiry process project? Or really, the question should be, we could be able to answer it as you're always doing inquiry. So there's not a good time frame because any time would be appropriate.
Right. Big.
All right. Very good questions today.
Yeah, it was awesome. All right, good. I think we just saved the world, right?
we can tell ourselves that, yes.
We pulled us out of darkness. Now we know what's going on.
All right then.
All right,
Otherwise,
thanks. All right,
see you
talk
next
to you
time.
later.
Bye.